Welcome to part 2 of our live training session here with our Subaru WRX. Now in the last video we learned how to build our base calibration file using our Ecu Flash tuning software. We were working with a Carberry ROM and we set up everything within the ROM file so we can start off doing our fuel tuning in this training tutorial. We're going to be taking a look at how to do idle, part throttle, and wide open throttle tuning in our fuel tables with a mass airflow and speed density operation, and learning how we can set up these both for a hybrid blend towards the end of this training tutorial. We have a lot to talk about. Let's jump in so we can get started. Welcome back to our live training session here with our 2003 Subaru WRX. In our last video, we built the base calibration file to start off this video with to get the engine fired up and running. We went through some very specific things, and going back through just to recap what we did in the last video. We went in and made the spark timing extremely conservative. We went and turned the boost all the way down to the base wastegate actuator or spring level if you have an external wastegate or an internal wastegate. We're trying to run the lowest boost possible and really low spark timing. What we're trying to focus on and optimize in this training tutorial is looking at the fuel calibration process. Now, we always want to tune the fuel first, then spark timing, then boost control, in that order of operations on our Subaru. By having low spark timing, by having low boost, we can make sure that we don't damage the engine in the fuel calibration process, or very unlikely situation where we could damage the engine. Now, anything can happen, but going in and having ultra conservative timing and being able to have low boost will make sure that we're trying to eliminate as many variables as possible. So in this particular turbo, the actuator is rated at about 1 bar or 15 psi. That's the minimum that we're probably going to be able to build on this. Now, I don't know until we start doing some pulls and we see what it actually builds mechanically, but that's going to be what I'm expecting it to build. So we set our target boost to roughly 15 pounds and we zeroed out all of our wastegate duty cycle tables so that we were starting off on the lowest boost possible. We went into the spark timing table again, we made it ultra conservative as we got into boost. Now, idle and part throttle, the spark timing are already going to be optimized from Subaru. I'm not going to touch any of those values, but I am going to be focusing on the fuel calibration process. Now, we're going to be looking at how to calibrate and work with the mass airflow sensor, and then we'll move into doing speed density tuning. This is a Carberry ROM, so we have the ability to flop between MAF or MAP, speed density based mode, or the hybrid between both of them. So we're going to look at that technique and just doing the general blending and tuning each individual operation within this training tutorial, doing fuel tuning. So we're going to do the fuel tuning, take a look at all that, idle, part throttle, wide open throttle, in both MAF and speed density. Next video we'll look at spark timing tuning, and then the video after that we'll look at the boost control. So again, we're slicing away the order of operations that you should do things in so we can keep things as straightforward and simplistic as possible. We don't want to go in and try to tune multiple things at one time. That gets confusing, especially if you're novice at tuning. We need to slow down the process and make sure that we have everything accounted for and everything is going to be safe. So what we're going to be doing here is actually firing up the engine, and we're gonna have to let it come up to operating temperature. Now, anytime you get an engine starting to calibrate and tune, and you're starting off fresh like this, where you built the map and you get it up and running, we don't want to immediately go after making changes to the MAF curve or to, if you're in speed density mode, volumetric efficiency table. When the engine is cold, we have modifiers being applied to it. We have both post-start and warm-up enrichment. We need to make sure that those have dissipated away and they're no longer adding additional fuel, because the warm-up and post-start add additional fuel against the base pulse width that's calculated from our air mass and fuel mass relationship. We know that fuel mass is equal to air mass divided by target air fuel. We register the air mass from the MAF sensor. We know what the target air fuel is going to be at idle and part throttle, which is stoichiometric, and then we'll find that it converts that into a fuel mass. The fuel mass gets converted into an injector pulse width, or what actually commands the injectors to open and close to spray the fuel. That's going to be based on injector data that we program. So when we're getting it up and running, we don't know if we have any kind of errors in our fuel side of things, the conversion from fuel mass into the pulse width with our injector data. Most likely in this car we do, because we didn't have perfect data to start off with. Or we don't know if we have something off maybe on our air mass side of things. We might have one or the other being incorrect, and we want to make sure that when we're going in and trying to calibrate and tune our vehicle, that it's up to operating temperature. So all of those adders, the warm-up enrichment and post-start, so our additive 1, 2, and 3 tables under our going down here just a little bit, just so we're very clear on this, under our warm-up enrichment section here, so that these are dissipated, and we're focused on just calibrating the main table. So what I'm going to do is fire it up, and then we're going to do some data logging, and we're going to allow it to come up to operating temperature. It might be too rich, it might be too lean. We'll see where we're at. Once it's at operating temperature, then we can start to really evaluate and dig into the calibration process. What we're going to be focused on here is trying to evaluate how it's running on the mass airflow sensor. Now, because we didn't perform a MAF rescale, we have a stock MAF sensor on the car, we're going to be confident in the readings from the MAF sensor. Any discrepancies or deviations we're finding in our fuel delivery, if we're too rich or too lean, we can then go in and start to tweak out the injector flow rate and the latency. Those are going to be what we go after to get things sorted out in terms of tuning our mass airflow in idle and part throttle. Now, specifically at idle, as we're going to find, we want to take a look at some markers that are going to tell us if we have to calibrate the MAF table or if we have to go after our injector data. We'll look at that in a little bit once we get the engine up to operating temperature, because we can't evaluate anything until we're at operating temperature and we're settled out on the idle speed. And what we're going to do here, and I've already flashed this particular file, which is our base SD file. We flashed that in the end of the last video. We're going to jump into ROM Raider right now. And our ROM Raider software, let's open this up here. I am connected to the vehicle, so my engine is off, my key is on, and we're going to find that it's showing my status up here, reading data. It's recognizing my Tactrix 2.0 cable's been plugged in. I am serial streaming a wideband input to my laptop. So I have my AM wideband gauge that has a serial output. I'm using I've converted, and just as we showed in a previous training tutorial, we've converted the serial stream output into an RS-232 connector. Then we're plugging in a USB to serial connector converter into that, plugged into my laptop. So we know that everything is going to be working right. We can actually go in and test that real quick just to verify that both cables are functioning before we begin our process here. If we type in Device Manager and take a look here in our Windows, we can go in here, take a look at our COM ports. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.